And help me welcome Senator Abdullahi Adamu, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Agriculture. He is our first lead. Welcome.
I hope not. Thank you very much. Somehow, the MC did not establish for us a protocol for this session. So I take it that the protocol that was in place during the first session is being adopted for this session. If that is the case, I stand by that protocol. I may only want to add that it is a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon and to participate with this humble, brief address, which I have pleasure in presenting. The goal to build national resilience for sustainable food security that will end hunger today requires an increased technological disruption and value addition for increased food production that will alleviate the perils of hunger. One significant fact of food security is that all people at all times have physical and economic access to adequate amounts of nutritious, safe, and culturally appropriate foods, which are produced in an environmentally sustainable and socially just manner, and that people are able to make informed decisions about their food choices, and the people who produce our food are able to earn a decent living growing those foods that we eat. Current estimates show that nearly 690 million people worldwide are hungry. According to the World Food Program, 135 million people suffer from acute hunger, largely due to man-made conflicts, climate change, and economic downturns. The COVID-19 pandemic could now double that number, putting an additional 130 million people at risk of suffering acute hunger by the end of the year 2020. At the same time, a profound change of the global food and agriculture system is needed if we are to nourish the more than 690 million people who are hungry today and the additional 2 billion people that the world will have by the year 2050. The Nigerian government over the years has not built a resilient, sustainable food security program for lack of political will to walk the talk. However, the bold agricultural interventions of this government through the Central Bank of Nigeria and other financial inclusive interventions, the agricultural quarantine export certification value chain of over 30 prime agro-commodities, the rice projects of the Northwest, agro-input supply, and contributions of the various farmer associations have lessened the predicament of total dependence on petrodollars to the rather encouraging increase of agro-dollars in Nigeria. It is therefore canvassed forthwith that for Nigeria to end hunger by building national resilience for sustainable food security, we must ensure, among others, the following. Increase youth involvement in agriculture. Nigeria needs to harness the energy of its teeming young population for increased involvement in agriculture. It is common knowledge that agriculture requires the exuberant energy of the younger generation to boost agricultural production and in turn end hunger in our country. Value addition to indigenous crops for increased earnings. Nigeria can boast of so many crops that are sold at the international market, but often these crops do not earn premium prices for lack of value addition. It is therefore recommended that for Nigeria to end hunger and secure better earnings, there is need to ensure value addition on Nigerian agro-commodities for greater sales at the international market and for higher earnings. Some examples of value additions like the Cross River State Ecom chocolate, a recent product of international standard, and the Akwa Ibom coconut oil refinery stand out as examples. Provision of single-digit loans, farm inputs, and agricultural intervention from Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Central Bank of Nigeria, and NERSO. There are several interventions that have been designed by the federal government to aid farmers, but more needs to be done. State governments must necessarily complement the efforts of the federal government to drive home this initiative of ending hunger. This financial intervention should be all year round, noting dry season, farming of fruits, vegetables, and maize to feed the nation. The message in this particular item is this. We need to be reminded that agriculture in the Nigerian Constitution is on the concurrent legislative list. That means that the federal government will play a role, the state government will play its own role, and also even the local government administrations have roles to play. It is not a one-man show because it's concurrent. So the fact that the federal government is showing so much interest in agriculture and investing so much does not preclude the need for the state governments and the local governments down the tiers of our governance to play their own role. Strengthening of extension services. One major setback that continues to draw the country back in terms of agricultural production is weak or non-existent extension services. Farmers are left on their own without professional guidance. Notably, knowledge of the proper crop spacing alone can double the yield. Agriculture is time-bound. Precision agriculture is the way to go, and this involves the application of technology to guide extension agents. Government must take steps to restore, train, and unleash skilled extension workers, agents on our farms. This is very, very, very important In the days of old, if you permit me to say, I grew up to see in the very, very rural areas where I was born, there were people we call in Hausa Malabangona. In English, you call them extension workers. They were in every native administration, in every district. Unfortunately, the practice of ensuring that there are extension workers would appear to have suffered some setbacks, very serious setbacks. Like I said, during the course of the introduction, I was introduced as a farmer myself. I have been in agriculture, God knows, for as long as I can remember. And I can say over the last 20 years, in fact, since the end of the First Republic, I don't remember seeing an extension worker visit my farm. When I was privileged to be governor, I tried to revive that service to agriculture and to our farmers. Unfortunately, if you go around the country today, most farmers will complain of the fact that the advisory role which the extension worker plays is almost non-existent. And if you consider the fact that most of our farmers, majority of our farmers, the so-called peasant farmers or smallholder farmers, they are illiterate, or some of them at best semi-literate. They need guidance. They need to be shown how to prepare land. They need to be guided how to choose what kind of land they have, what type of crop on it. They need to choose which crop is ideal for a particular type of land. They need to know the spacing for any of the crop that he or she may be involved with. They need a choice, to be guided the choice of fertilizer to use and when to use such fertilizer. All these services are near zero. And unless and until we bring back the idea of having extension workers to give necessary support and knowledge on the job, on the farm, unless we do so, a lot of what we're hoping to get may be difficult to achieve in terms of targets. Strengthening of agricultural cooperatives in Nigeria. Nigeria should recall the days of vibrant cooperatives that saw agriculture developing as a lucrative business. Those vibrant days are on a decline. Who may say, in quotes, having mechanized, in quotes, agricultural operation, we constitute no more than probably 5% of Nigerian farmers. The core number of farmers belong to the lower cadre in the economic ladder, who have very limited resources, limited finance. Even the land that they are tilling, you find it's not their land. But what this particular point is trying to emphasize is this. If you go out of this country to any of the European countries, and to some extent, even some African countries, like Kenya, I've been there, they have got well-organized cooperatives. Here, you see a person who is into, say, rice production, or let's say maize. He tills his land. He does the planting himself. The care that is required, for pre-germination to post-germination, right through tendering up to harvest. Every operation that's required at the various stages, he virtually does it himself or herself. When you go to these places where cooperatives is developed, you have your cooperative, they will come to your farm, they will till the land, prepare the land for you for a price. Do the planting for you in accordance with standards requirements for a price. They will apply fertilizer for you, do whatever, application of herbicides and what have you. They do all that for you. Even up to harvest, they bring their equipment, they do the harvest for you for a price. Here, you have to do every little thing by yourself. If our cooperatives are to be properly groomed, they have greater borrowing power to acquire equipments. And before you know what is happening, our capacities as individual farmers, cumulatively will increase. The rate at which we are going, the challenge is even greater. Because now, most of the farmers who are talking about farmers in my age group, they are in the 70s. The young ones are the ones in the 50s, 60s. But they are more in the 60s bracket to 70s, the farmers. In no distant future, they will be able to, either through old aging or death. Now, if the young ones are not there, if they're not properly brought up, if they're not trained, if they're not encouraged, through these cooperatives we are taking basis, which is hardly the case. Again, very important. Here we are talking about diversifying our economy. This far, from the late 50s, almost to date, oil and gas have been the main source. Economy, we will explore other areas that hold promise if properly exploited to give the Nigerian economy a greater base. One of such areas is agriculture. All the talk about oil, GDP, the rest of them, oil does not employ up to 5% of the Nigerian population, the oil sector. It doesn't. Nigerian agricultural operation probably will lift our agriculture production up. But once we so do, we may have excess, meaning we may have more than we need, maybe for our industry, maybe for food. Where we do such excess, we will have to export. To export, we need a very, very important facility that is ordinarily in every civilized economy operated by the quarantine service of the country. It is the duty of quarantine service, if you see the enabling law that created them, they are responsible for inspecting what comes into this country by way of agricultural produce and what we want to send out as export from agricultural produce. I have come to be very familiar with this because I've been with the Agriculture Committee in the National Assembly for a while now. It is pathetic. Pathetic. Not because there's no law. The laws are there. But observance and compliance with these laws have become a recurrent decimal of problem. If you go to the ports now in Lagos or in Calabar or any such seaports that we have or airports, you find we are more up to date with the equipment requirements to receive imports than we have for exports. What I mean here is the guy who is into importing to Nigeria is more at ease. He can do so with less tears at the port than the Nigerian who is busy wanting to export Nigerian produce out of this country. It is a pathetic statement to make, but it is the truth. There is continuing conflict between customs and the quarantine service. Conflict between NAFDAC and the quarantine service. Conflict between security operatives at the ports of entry with the quarantine service. Why is this so? If you go to Liverpool, no matter what you bring into or you take into the United Kingdom, if you use that port, as long as your papers are right, are correct, it's just as easy as going through the immigration with your visa, the passport. No headache. The police are there. Security is there. Whatever agency of government has to do with anything import into Britain, they are there. There's no conflict between them. If you go to Germany, you ditto. If you go to the States of America, with the size, everything you ditto. You don't have problem. Why do we have problem with our system? Why would the quarantine service not have a conducive atmosphere to perform the statutory role of inspecting agro products in or out of this country? The laws are there. So I hope someone knows, because they make the law. We made the laws already. The laws are there. It's compliance, unfortunately. Constitution of the National Technical Working Group on Global Gap. The NTWG was constituted and inaugurated in the year 2017 with 80% private participation and 20% government participation. But it has refused to operate because of internal wranglings, power play, and leadership tussle. Nigeria has no officially certified farm process or product by Global Gap. It is sad and shameful to note that while South Africa has 1,797, Kenya 1,879, Egypt 671, Cote d'Ivoire 355, Cameroon has 9, Nigeria has 0 Global Gap certifications. The Nigeria Agro Exporter Groups need to arise to the occasion and put their house in order. Here, I mention it deliberately because it is a problem, but it is more of an institutional problem than problem from people who are desirous of exporting any produce from this country. I believe very strongly that those who are requiring or who are in need of benefiting from this service or from this certification are not being properly advised and being properly guided. And so we remain in this vicious cycle. We talk of being the biggest economy, the biggest country, the biggest population, but these are little things that bother us. Some of these problems are not institutional problems. They are man-made problems. And those who are responsibility for overseeing this need to buckle up a bit so that Nigerians can be on the global map for this. There's no way we can be happy or proud to remain local producers and local dealers in a situation where this government is fighting by the day. Those of you who are current affairs students, we are trying to discourage appetite for foreign foods and see how we can produce enough so that we can send the excess out. But this excess, even when we have it, even when desire to export is there, we must be certificated. This global certification must be there, otherwise you won't have it. Sometimes back, if you recall, the country, so some exporters wanted to send some items, I think grains, some beans or so, if I remember very well, and they were rejected at the European Common Market agencies. All right? It is shocking, embarrassing, that as I talk today, we have not cleared that hurdle. We have not cleared that hurdle. Why? Who is responsible? What is missing? If we want to be competitive, we must sit up. Otherwise, we will just watch the world go by us. God forbid. Setting up of small cottage industries for gainful employment. It is a practice in other climes to set up small-scale cottage industries that can employ between 5 to 15 persons. This will drive agribusiness, increase efficiency of agro-production, create more employment, and turn the economy of the rural communities around. This will curb rural-urban migration by keeping the youths in agribusiness in the rural areas. This is very simple, and it can be done without much sweat. Here we are talking about unemployed youth. Unemployed youth. Let's not deceive ourselves. No government in the whole world has enough opportunities, vacancies to employ. How much more or how much less, taking countries at our level in the ladder of development? So we must think out of the box. Every one of us here is in a position. Every one of us here in this hall now is in a position to start something that he can employ himself and employ his brother or cousin or somebody within the neighborhood. Every one of us here. You have to have the determination to start somewhere. Start small. As we say, think big, but start small. You grow 1 or 2 persons, or you just start with yourself. You bring a second person by a month or 2 or 3, a third person, a fourth person, and that's how it grows. But we want to start big. You think big and start big. And you find you don't have the capacity, you don't have the expertise, you don't have the resources for the size that you want to be your takeoff point. If we can adjust our thinking a bit, and with agriculture, the opportunities are limitless. Are limitless. Capital addition. What is addition? Value addition, what is it? Whatever it is you are planting. You don't have to produce the final product and compete in the supermarket. You can add, even if you are just cleaning what you are producing, clean it and package it. It's value addition. Clean it and bag it. It's value addition. And you can go on ad infinitum in adding value up to when it gets to your table, to your mouth. If it's something for food, or to the factory, if it's something for industrial use. We must address this issue seriously. We can employ ourselves for a start. We can employ ourselves for a start. We must not wait or walk all the streets in Abuja looking for a job that does not exist. There's another problem. We talk of employment. Some of us who are privileged to start some little businesses, our attitude to work is extremely bad. If you make reference to the Geneva Convention on Labor, it says a good day's job for a good day's pay. You have a guy, you employ him, he doesn't know that. If you tell him, he either pretends he doesn't understand you, or he brings you excuses. He doesn't see himself as being an important element, an essential element in the production of what you are doing to raise the money to pay his salary. If you're fussy, you are disturbed, you are too bossy. If he's employed in a dairy farm, there are times when he should feed his animal. There are times when he should provide livestock care or veterinary care. There are times when they should go out, the animals, graze outside. There are times when they should be back. There are times when they should be milked for maximum, yield production. But the Nigerian, I'm telling you this from my personal experience. We don't have the discipline to comply with these basic requirements if you want to optimize the result. We don't have the discipline. You want to milk your cow at 5:30. He is not at work at 6:30, 1 hour after that. He's not even at work. He comes in lazily. By that time, the peak period for milk in the morning gone past. If you milk your cows in the right time, you stand the chance of about 10-15% increase in the production of milk for that hour. You can detour. If you are into poultry, there are times you should choose your feed properly, and there are times when you should use the feed. There are quantities for the feed that you have to give at a particular time for a particular, age of your chicken. How many of us follow that? How many have boys or girls working? And with due respect, I think in this scope, my personal experience, the girls do better. The girls do better in compliance. Unless we can do this in every sector, in every subsection in agriculture, unless we can do that, we improve on these, our investment will not get the maximum benefit of the investments that we make. And this is something that's is doable, it's easy. Just a little care will take us there. A little compliance, sense of compliance will take us there. To do that, discipline is a key word. Then there is the greater research and development of specific crops and varieties. Nigeria needs to pursue greater research on specific crops for greater yield, and also ensure the development of newer varieties that are more market-friendly. It has been observed that some cassava varieties have a high ethanol-producing potential, while others can provide quality cassava flour. Further research needs to be carried out on the Nigerian sweet brown beans to ensure early yield, considering the high potential and preference of the variety ahead of several beans varieties. On the issue of research, I don't know any African country, and I think I know quite a good number, that is ahead of Nigeria in terms of providing research institutions as infrastructure. I don't know any African country that has committed its resources to research institutions as we've done. As I talk, we have something in the region of about 21 institutions that are research-based. I happen to be on the chair of the Agriculture in the National Assembly. And every year, I go to each of these research institutions at least once, what we call oversight or budget defense. It's a pity that one continue lamenting on this. They are set up there. I help them to fight for additional budget requirements, because often the complaint is inadequate budget. So we have institutions that are not serving our purpose. We have institutions that are not serving purpose in agriculture. You go to do an oversight, and you find, when there's a capital project and capital budget provision, so. Overheads, so. Recurrent, so. Often, recurrent is 100% as salaries and wages. Overheads, conferences, seminars like this and the rest of them, they may not have enough, but they have something. Capital is the lowest often in the releases. But when you go to a place, an institution, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they tell you the same thing. The salaries are okay. You take your salary, and your belly will grow, maybe more than my own. But no research is taking place. How do you justify your salary? Can't you cry louder if your voice is not heard? Can't you do a little more with the budget office? Can't you do more with the budget office? Sometimes it's amazing when we get the envelope, what we call envelope, that is the provision for the budget for any fiscal year. Say, oh, Mr. X in Y institution. Yes, you see, your budget is very, very small. Let's see, we'll see how we can recommend increment. He will the first say, please, don't do it. Because they will say, I've reported. Don't do it. Because they say, I reported, and it's not good for me. We must do away with this habit. The president wants an honest servant in the system. The minister in your department, in your ministry, wants you to be honest with him. So if all of us contribute our little piece and piece of honesty, commitment to our calling, the system will improve. The system will improve. There's no reason you have an institution that is not doing its job. I keep recalling, there was a time we're having Shika Brown. To date, I have not heard of any institution that has done anything new. Some years back, there was something about the Von Veterinary Research Institute for some hides, kind of skin disease, some cattle. We made so much noise about it. Wanted to know where that is today. We must pull our